Hello, everyone, and welcome to Zola Suite. My name is Victoria, and I'll be leading our session this afternoon. Today's session does cover our APX training payment methods. Our APX payment methods, and we'll cover in this particular training how those payment methods will now appear here in your Zola Suite environment once you have activated your account, as well as how to use that. And then the second portion will be the back office portion of APX. I'm going to begin sharing my screen here in just a moment, but I do want to remind everyone that we are in the webinar format, meaning all of our participants today are in a mute or listen-only mode. With that said, you are welcome at any point in time to submit a question using either the question function or the chat function, whichever feels most comfortable for you. I'm going to begin sharing my screen at this time, and everyone should now have visibility of my Zola Suite dashboard. Here on the Zola Suite dashboard, we're going to go ahead and get started by navigating to our contacts. Once you have set up your APX account, you'll then first select your contacts. And when you open up a contact card, the billing tab will now include a portion at the bottom for your APX payment methods. There are two ways that your APX payment methods will appear here on the contact card. The first is going to be that you have shared an invoice with your client, and when they chose to pay, they selected the option to save their payment method for the future. When they do so, it will populate here on the billing tab of their contact card. You, the firm, will have visibility to the card or account type, as you can see here, the expiration date, and the last four digits. That will be all that is visible to you, the firm, making it PCI compliant. The other way that a payment method is added is by selecting the Add New Payment Method button and manually adding this, whether that is because you have required this upon opening up of the matter, your client is standing here before you in your office, or whatever method you have chosen, you'll have the option to add a manual method. APX does accept Visa, MasterCard, American Express, and Discover. You can also use the eCheck or ACH option. When using the eCheck or ACH option, just be sure that the billing address that you enter here is going to be that which matches your client's account that they are entering. That may or may not be the same address that you use for correspondence with your client. Once you select Save, you'll then see it appropriately populate under APX payment methods. It will now be available for use to apply payments. We're now going to navigate over to our accounting area by selecting the accounting module on the the accounting icon on the bottom left of your dashboard. Here within your accounting module, your very first sub-tab is going to be those for invoices and payments. I previously mentioned the option to send your client an invoice and prompt them to pay. In order to do so, when looking at your listing of invoices, you'll select the kebab icon on the far right of your screen and select Send as Attachment with Link. When you do so, it is going to attach your client's invoice and then include an option for them to select the link above, Click Here to pay. When the client selects Click Here to pay, it will walk them through selecting their bill, entering the amount of their payment, and entering their appropriate credit card or eCheck ACH information. At that time, they can select the option to save that for future use, which will then populate it on their contact card. You will also be able to send an invoice with direct payment options where your client is able to enter their own information using Share via Caseway. Caseway is our external portal that allows you to share invoices, documents, or files with anyone that is external to the firm, be it a client or a vendor. When you select Share via Caseway for any item here in Zola Suite, it will send an invitation to that recipient with a link and an activation code for them to complete their invitation and create their own access to their portal. From there, you can continue to share those invoices via Caseway, and your client will be able to log in, view their invoice, and make the same prompted payments as they did with their link to enter their own credit card or ACH information. It will also allow them to save that on file for future use. It is also possible for you, the firm, to manually apply payment. I'm going to review here a couple of methods for applying that manual payment. The first option is to manually apply a payment to an individual and specific invoice. To do so, I'll open the invoice by selecting that invoice number. Once your invoice has been approved, you'll notice that the Actions menu will now include an option to add a payment. When you select Add Payment, you'll be prompted to select who is paying, the primary client, or another related party, such as an insurance company or a related party. Based on that selection, you'll select the appropriate contact from your contact book. Today, we'll leave it as our primary client, Michael. Your To account will be the destination of this particular payment. Because we're paying directly on an invoice, my To account is always going to be my operating account or my undeposited funds. Undeposited funds is going to be a holding place here in Zola Suite, where you anticipate some type of a hold being placed on that payment by your bank. It would then allow you to make that deposit and credit toward this invoice, and at a later time, execute a batch transfer where you move funds from your undeposited into your operating account. For more information on undeposited funds, you can select the link above. For today, we'll leave this as a straight payment to our operating account. We can leave this as the whole amount or change this for partial. And when we come to our payment method, we're going to select APX. Upon selecting APX, we'll then see all of our stored payment methods that we have on file pre-populate here in the dropdown. We can select one of those options, or if needed, come back to our Add Payment method and manually enter a new payment method. It will once again bring us to our options for credit or debit card, or an e-check ACH option. Where no payment method has been stored or saved for future use, you would simply be able to select the Add Payment method. You can add any applicable notes up here at the top and then select Save to record this payment amount or save and print a record for the print a copy as record for your client. I'm going to return to my listing of invoices and cover two more ways to apply a direct payment. And I do like to take a quick pause. If you did join us a few minutes late, please just note that all of our participants today and here in the webinar format are in a listen or mute only mode. With that said, you are welcome to submit any questions that you may have throughout the training using either the chat or question function, whichever feels most appropriate for you. In that particular case, we opened an individual invoice and made a direct payment to the invoice. I'm now going to return to my plus sign here in the upper right-hand corner, and I'm going to select Apply Direct Payment. In this case, your client has let you know that they simply want to make a payment on their account. They haven't specified a particular matter or invoice, but that they simply want to make a payment. Here, we can select if the client is paying or, again, a non-client payee, such as an insurance company or related party. Based on that, we'll either select that contact from our dropdown as a payee and then be prompted to select the client, or where they are one and the same, simply jump to the client. Today, I'll select the client. Where this client has multiple matters, I can drill down to a particular matter. It will bring up all of the open invoices either for one matter or where the client has multiple matters and I've not made a selection. I'll see all of my clients' open invoices listed here below. I'll now enter my payment amount and once again choose my destination account. Because we're applying these directly to an invoice, we can select our operating account or the undeposited funds. My payment method will be APX, which will then prompt and display any of those stored payment methods that are already on file or the option to manually add a new payment method. Once I have made my appropriate selection, I can make one-click selection at the top to apply those funds to my oldest invoice first, and where there are any funds remaining, it would appropriately spread them over the consequent invoices. I can also hand select invoices and on the right-hand side, edit the amount that I would like to apply to each particular invoice, whatever I and the client have agreed upon. Add any applicable notes, and when you are finished, you can select Apply and New to repeat the process, apply and print a record, or simply apply and close. For today, here at my test account, I'm going to select Cancel. We're going to return back to our plus sign, and I'm also going to cover our trust or retainer payments. In our previous examples, we were applying payments directly to the invoice. Here, we're going to be setting up a retainer that we can later transfer from either our trust account or the retainer itself toward an open invoice. And my apologies, let me just go ahead and quickly do a refresh here. My link is giving some issues. There we go. In this particular case, I'm going to be setting up a new retainer. Once again, I can select who is paying, and I'll be required to select a particular matter since this is a retainer. The type of account that I choose is going to determine whether this retainer is a trust retainer or an operating retainer. For today, we'll select the trust retainer. Input the amount of your retainer, and again, select APX as your payment method. We can add that payment method manually or select the method on file. Because this is a retainer and because specifically the trust account is highly regulated, you'll now notice that the notes field is a required field. This can be as simple as noting this is the opening retainer for this particular matter. But again, this particular note field will be mandatory and is set up for you for your own bookkeeping purposes should there be an audit in the future. Once you have entered your information, you can select Create Retainer or again, create and print a record for the client. That $5,000 will now be available for us to apply toward any of our open invoices using the Apply Trust Retainer Transaction option. This option will appropriately now allow us to move any money that is in the trust account in that retainer toward our open invoices. And similar to what we saw in our direct payment option, I can select my invoices individually and then change the amounts on the right. I won't need to select a payment method here because I've already done so when I set up the trust account and funded that. We're going to move over to the second portion of our training, which is our APX back office. And I'm going to switch browser tabs here to do so. We'll come back to the Zola Suite accounting in just a moment. I do want to first note for you this link up here at the top of your browser, which is very simply just portal.apxn.abacusnext.com. This is going to be the address that you'll navigate to when you'd like to log into your back office portal. I've copied that as well into the chat of today's webinar. Your credentials for logging into your APX back office were set when you filled out your APX application. They were that username and password at the bottom of step 1 of the application that required you to have at least 7 characters, a capital letter, a number, as well as a symbol. When you log into your APX back office, you'll now have visibility here on the dashboard to all of the transactions that are happening on your APX account. Keeping in mind, this is going to include all of the transactions that you, the firm, are processing, a la payments toward an open invoice, as well as those your clients are processing, where they are paying on their invoice using the Direct Pay Now link. When you select payments, and my apologies, my browser keeps freezing here today. Here we go. Here we go. All right. So we saw on our dashboard just a high-level overview. When you select the payment history option, you'll have visibility to all of the individual transactions happening on your account. Keeping in mind that your individual transactions are all going to happen here in your APX portal, and all of these will batch at the end of the day so that you will have one transfer over to your operating or trust account based on the account and its appropriate transaction. Those funds will be dispersed to your bank account, and then you'll see a secondary transaction come from your operating account with those applicable fees being withdrawn. The transactions you have here, most importantly, you'll want to have visibility to the status. This is going to allow you to see where you have a transaction that has settled and approved and where the transaction itself has failed. I'll show you in just a moment how to set an alert for something like this so that you can appropriately reach out to your client to request a new form of payment. Disputes will detail any of the disputes that are happening on your APX, account. Just as you and I can file a dispute for a transaction that we don't recognize on our credit or bank account, so can your client. Those disputes, first and foremost, will have a red banner across your dashboard alerting you to a new dispute, and you'll then see those disputes as open here under the Open tab, and once they have been closed and resolved under the Close tab. You'll then ultimately see whether it has been won, meaning the funds awarded to you, the firm, or if it was lost, meaning the funds were refunded back to the card or account holder. The most common reason for a dispute or a dispute being lost would be that someone is using someone else's payment without their authorization. Your payment returns are going to feature all of your payment returns. This will include any of those disputes that have been lost and refunded back to the card or account holder, as well as any refunds that you have processed as a firm. I'm going to take this opportunity to navigate back to our Zola Suite accounting to show you where you will process a refund using APX. The first thing to note will be the payment itself. You'll want to open your particular invoice, and at the bottom, you'll see the date, amount of that transaction, and most importantly, note the destination account where this transaction has posted. The reason for this is that your refund is actually going to be processed on your account. Here we see our APX payment method posted to the operating account. I'm now going to navigate to my banks and registers and select my operating account from the dropdown. I'll search in my transactions to find that particular payment. And to the far right, I can select the pencil icon to edit this. When I do so, it is going to bring up this particular payment deposit, and I'll have visibility to the last 4 digits where this payment method posted. I now have an option to simply select Refund at the bottom. This option will allow you to refund any of the transactions or direct payments to an invoice. Refunding an operating retainer is going to be done using the plus sign and by selecting Refund Operating Retainer. A refund of your trust account, or excuse me, the balance on a trust account, will still be done from your banks and registers and will still be done using a new trust check. Moving back to our APX back office, I'm going to move alongside the side panel here to note for you that you do have an option to add additional users if you have multiple personnel that you'll need in your billing and accounting department to monitor transactions. You'll also see under the admin area a schedule of withdrawals. This is going to detail for you your withdrawal history. Again, all of your transactions are going to batch here in your APX account. And at the end of the day, they will move over to your bank account in one disbursement. You'll then see a secondary transaction on your operating account that will be for the fees themselves. You'll see all of your withdrawals scheduled here and a listing. And then where a withdrawal was returned, you'll see that listed here. The most common reason for a withdrawal return would be an invalid bank account number. As you begin to amass transactions, you'll want to pull reporting and take a look at your profit and loss here in your APX account. You'll see under your reporting options to view transaction details, any of your balance details, disbursement summaries, and more. My test account unfortunately does not have a lot of information because it does require a live bank feed. So unfortunately, I do not have an example of one I can pull for you, but I do like to point out that as you begin to amass transactions, you'll find these reports available to you. You'll also see an option on the bottom left to select email alerts. This is where you can receive an email alert for any of the transactions that are happening on your APX account. Specifically, if you'd like to receive an alert when a disbursement has been processed, meaning that money is leaving your APX account and headed toward your bank account, here is where you can toggle on and off these options. Once you have turned on the alert, you'll enter the email address below where you'd like to receive that alert. You do have an option to enter multiple emails. If you'd like to also know if one was denied or failed, or even throughout the process as it is processing and then ultimately processed, you can certainly turn those options on there as well. Do keep in mind that your disbursement process is going to be the money leaving your APX account. The actual time when those particular funds are available to you, the firm, in your bank account will be dependent on your bank and any holds that they may or may not place. The other most common email alert is going to be around transactions. If you'd like to know every time a transaction goes through, you can certainly turn that option on if desired. Our most common alert is for the transaction failed. Again, you can add multiple email addresses, and this will allow you to receive an alert when a transaction does not go through, so you can appropriately reach out to your client to request an alternate form of payment. At the bottom, as you begin to review some of your reporting here in your APX back office, you may have some additional questions on those fields. The knowledge base is going to include some terminology for you and ways to best use those reports once you begin to amass transactions. That does bring us to the end of our formal training agenda. But we do have a couple minutes remaining, so I do like to take this opportunity to again remind folks that if you'd like to submit any questions using that question function or the chat, you're welcome to do so. And while folks are doing that, I do want to call out that we do have available by selecting the question mark in the upper right-hand corner, the Help Center for you. The Zola Suite Help Center is going to include a number of options for training short videos, everything from 2 to 15 minutes, an option to sign up for more trainings and webinars, as well as how-to articles for anything you may have a question regarding APX or simply accounting and invoicing. If you don't find what you're looking for there, you're also welcome to reach out to us at onboarding@zolasuite.com. Onboarding@zolasuite.com will reach our team of trainers and onboarding specialists, and you are welcome to reach out regarding any of your additional questions that you may have or think of later. Great. We do have a question that has come through, and that particular question is, what is the max amount that can be expected for ACH or credit cards? Uh, and so I will just ask for probably a little bit more clarification regarding the max amount. If you are, I'm not sure if this is being referenced around the max fee, or if this is going to be regarding the max amount of a transaction that can be processed. I can tell you that the fee itself is going to be a flat fee. ACH is a $1 flat fee for an ACH payment, and then credit cards are a flat 3% of the transaction. Okay, great. Thank you so much. I did see some clarification here. The max transaction. I would love to get back to you on that. Unfortunately, I do not have that information and I don't want to misquote for you. I do know it is a fairly high amount, but I will certainly circle back regarding the max transaction. I'd like to provide you with a definitive answer. I do have all of our participants today, their email address, and so therefore I can reach out to you directly. I'm going to keep this open to see if there's any additional questions that come through while I am certainly looking to see if I can access that information there. All right, we do have one more question, which is where to locate a direct pay link for clients. So we did cover this early in the training there. And so I'm going to return to our accounting area. And under your invoices and payments sub-tab here, when you are looking at an invoice, the direct pay link is going to be located by selecting the kebab icon to the far right of your invoice. And you have two options. You can send as an attachment with a link, which will then include a link here. Oops, excuse me, something's cached here, which will include a link for the client to select. And my apologies, my account has somehow logged itself out there. It will include that link there in the email. That is going to be a link to directly pay on that particular invoice. With regards to a link a la a client portal, if you will, that is not a feature that we currently have available. I do know that that is a feature that has been requested. And they are working on. Unfortunately, I do not have a specific time frame as to when that will be put in place. But here, hopefully, I can get that link back up for you. If not, I do want to remind everyone that everyone who is registered for this particular webinar will receive a recording of the session today, and we do cover that early on in the session itself. Great. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and try to see if I can pull up my other test account here just so I can show you where you will be able to process that link. All right, I am in a different test account, so it's going to look slightly different here, but it will be the same feature. Again, when you come to the right-hand side of an invoice, you'll select Send as an attachment with a link, and this will include a click here to pay. You'll see the invoice is attached, and the client can then select Click here to pay, and that will prompt them to enter their credit card and account information and the amount of their payment directly toward this invoice. Right. Thank you, everyone, for your patience and time today. I will reach out to everyone regarding the final question there that we had regarding the max payment amount. And I do want to thank you all for your time and patience there at the end with my browser that seems to be stuck and caching. My apologies for that. Again, you'll all receive a copy of of this particular webinar, and a welcome to Zola Suite.